Hey, we've got a few folks. Waiting on a few more.
We're just going to wait on a few more people and then we will get started with our, if everyone can put themselves on mute, that would be awesome. That would very much help our sound. Awesome. Thanks so much.
So anybody got any good jokes? I can always tell my favorite one to start out, okay? Now, Tim, stop me if you've heard this one before.
I've heard them all, man, but go ahead anyway.
So what did the buffalo say to his son when he went off to college? Bye, son.
Matt, you're starting this off well.
The
best dad joke ever.
That is the best dad joke ever.
Yes.
So I'm all about the dad jokes and stuff like that, with having a whole bunch of kids.
Like, you're not modeling the actual power. The power is already being kind of modeled in this program.
So we're at about 10:03. We've got a good group of people on right now. So I think Matt and Tim, if you're up for it, we might get started.
I think that'd be great. We'd love to. Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started.
Sounds great. So hi everybody, my name is Sydney Ray. I'm the Vice Chair and Acting Young Professional Lead for Rocky Mountain Chapter's International Association of Exhibitions and Events, which is IAEE for short. Thanks for joining us. This is Recruitment and Job Applications, an insider's perspective, presented by young professionals of IAEE Rocky Mountain Chapter and sponsored by Aventus AI. This webinar will take you through an insider's look at the process a company takes to post a job, what your resume needs to stand out, and how to build a network. Our speakers today will cover the percentage of roles filled by online posting versus through networks, as well as how best to articulate your strengths when applying for a job. They will also cover how to get around the challenge of companies wanting experience, but no one will give you a job until you have that experience. I now want to introduce you to our speakers. Matt Cheek, give us a wave, Matt, is the managing partner at Highland Principles, recruiting and project consulting nationwide. His clients range from many Fortune 500 companies like Anthem, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, to small agile startups. He is the current co-founder of Aventus AI, a technology event company, and the former VP of talent for a large consulting company covering all of North America. Matt has over 15 years of recruiting and human talent management. He is also IAEE Rocky Mountain Chapter's webmaster and is based out of Salt Lake City, Utah.
Man,
hey, Matt.
If you could follow me around and say that would really, anytime I walk into a room, if you could be like, and here he is, that would be wonderful.
Here comes Matt. I sure can. Our second speaker is Tim Wellmaker. Tim is a 25-year veteran of the technology staffing industry. He is known for building high-performance sales and recruiting teams that deliver results to a diverse set of clients nationwide. Throughout Tim's career, he has attracted, trained, and managed some of the highest-performing recruiters in the country who have in turn helped navigate thousands of technologists through the stress and uncertainty of job changes as they see the next logical step in their careers. Tim is currently a principal at eHire, where his recruiting teams work with a variety of technologists looking to make their next career move. His greatest work passion is helping his teammates achieve their professional destiny. Tim is a board member to TAG Ed, the Technology Association of Georgia's STEM activation nonprofit. TAG Ed's mission is to create and cultivate a passion for STEM-related subjects in the K-12 age groups, specifically among at-risk youth. Wow. If you have any questions, sorry, Tim, jump on in.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here and contribute. Really looking forward to this.
We are so excited to have you here, Tim. If you all attendees have questions during this webinar, please type them into the chat as they arise. I'll be reviewing them as they come up, and we'll address some in the moment and some at the end, just depending on what's pertinent at that time. And with that, let's dive into our content. There's a lot to cover, and honestly, a relatively short amount of time for how much we want to talk about.
Thank you, Sydney, for doing this. I appreciate you being the moderator, right? This is awesome. So
absolutely. I'm so grateful to have both you, Matt, and Tim here. I think that this is a really pertinent time for us to be talking about recruitment and job applications and how to build your network. There are so many people, not just in the events industry, but honestly across the US and across the world, that probably could use some advice right now on how best to expand their network or get ready for some new job applications.
I think you're right, Sydney, in the fact that there's a lot right now that, you know, people are looking, okay, what do I need to do? I've got all this great experience, or, hey, I don't have this experience. How do I go out and get this great experience so that people can hire me? And I will make a plug for Tim. I've known Tim, I don't know, 15 years. And, you know, when I was very first starting out, Tim took me under my wing and really showed me about, how to cultivate a resume, how to really network, how to build. He's such a nice guy. And so I was super happy to have him on this. And so I think hopefully we'll be able to really offer some concrete ideas and ways that people can kind of go through and go about their job search, if that makes sense.
It's really interesting, Matt, if you think about the dynamic of today.
Yeah.
It's because within a matter of, I would say, 4, maybe 6 weeks, we've gone from the most dynamic, robust job market in the history of our country to completely uncharted and unknown territory.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we're going to be talking about today are tried and true practices that we really haven't had to talk about for many years because it's been such an employee-driven market. And there's been such a high demand for people that we haven't had to talk about the power of your network. We haven't had to talk about making sure that your resume is formatted clearly and articulated in a way that presents yourself in a great way, because they haven't been hot topics. Yeah. It's been such a high demand market for talent that we really haven't had to review this. So this is going to be a review for a lot of folks who haven't really had to worry about the job market over the course of the last 5 years. So a real quick pivot and a very timely topic.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So I just want to jump in. Can you give us some background on what the process a company takes to post a job?
Yeah, so you know, I can talk a little bit to that, Tim, if you want me to jump in. When I was a VP of talent, there's a variety of things you had to do. One, you had to make sure that the job was, you know, hireable, right? There are several federal laws that say you can't just post jobs out there just to post jobs out there and kind of fish, right? You got to have a actual job. So you have to go through your approval, right? Budgetary approval. You have to go through and make sure that it meets the key requirements of an HR, right? Of human resources, that we take into account all the many aspects that this role is going to give, and then where it fits in the organization, and so there are a variety of different steps it takes before you actually put out that job, right? There's a lot of work. I tell people all the time, the thing that takes the most amount of work is anytime you have you want to start a job, right? Because it starts with the manager saying, I need to hire somebody. Then it goes to director or VP, right? And then from there, it goes to HR because they have to approve it. Then it goes to finance to make sure they have the budgetary. And then it goes to the recruiting team to recruit. And then it takes the time to, you know, for the hiring manager to interview. So there's a lot of time that's spent, and nobody wants to waste time. So most people, when we get in, they were not interested in wasting time. They wanted to find the right candidates, right? That was very important to them. Tim, anything to add?
Yeah, so what I would add to that, Matt, is from a pure agency perspective, we've got a couple of different things to talk about. One would be the company itself that's going to post a job for, let's say, a web developer. And Matt's correct. They've got to go through all different types of controls to make sure budget is approved, to make sure the need is there. And then they've got to adhere to a lot of employee IEEE regulations as it relates to the candidates that they look at and the candidates that they talk to. If you're talking about a recruiting agency, an IT staffing company or a sales staffing company, that's a completely different process. If you're looking on Dice or Monster or Career Builder or LinkedIn and you see that a job has been posted by an agency, what that means is that they have a relationship with a hiring manager. That hiring manager has articulated what their needs are, and they have an agreement that they're going to work on that requirement. And then at that point in time, they may go on the different career sites like Monster, Dice, Career Builder, LinkedIn, and post a job. So there's the difference between the jobs that you might see posted from an agency versus the job that you might see posted directly from the company itself. If that offers any clarification.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Does that answer that, Sydney? Does that
Absolutely. So you're talking about specifically postings online, but I know that you can get a lot of jobs through networking. What's the difference, and what are the percentage of roles that are filled by online postings versus networking?
Look at Sydney. She's just coming out with the hardball. She's like, look, there's no messing around. We only got a little bit of time. I'll show you the good stuff. So there was a study done, and I'll have to go back and look at exactly who did it. It may have been Deloitte or someone else, but they found it was a little bit over 6% of all postings were filled just solely through a candidate that had applied online. And so it was somewhere around between 60 and 70% of all jobs were done through a network. Now, do you still have to apply? Yes. Most of the times, we would have somebody who would come through, but they have to go through kind of the legal process. You may receive it. Hey, I have a friend who has a friend that knows this person's hiring. They put you over there. You have a conversation. And if it's all right, I'll use kind of my own story. Would that be okay?
Go for it.
I was working in Atlanta. I owned a pest control and landscape company, right? I was a partner in it. We were selling it. I sold enough. I bought 2 leather couches. Yep, that's all I made from the sale of that company. It was great. And so I had to find another job. So a recruiter had a job, and I looked up the address because I didn't feel that they could adequately sell me without learning who I was. So I went, and it was a house, and I knocked on the door. And this lady answers, and she goes, can I help you? And this is before, you get 1,000 knocks by Amazon every day, right? This is like, you knocked on my door in the middle of the day. And I'm like, is this Hope and Associates? And she's like, yeah, why? And I go, you have this job I feel I'm a good fit for. I'd like to apply. And she's like, no one's ever come to my door. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It was a sales role. And she goes, come in. So we sat in her living room. And, recruiter worked from home, right? And 45 minutes later, I wasn't the right fit for the role. But she goes, but you showed a lot of gumption coming here. And so she sent me to another person's work that owned a recruiting company. That's how I got into recruiting. Was somebody goes, hey, you should go talk to this. You have this, I like the way you talk. Go talk to this person. And then I went in and I drove directly to that company, walked right in and said, hey, this person said I should go talk to Jim Wilson, who's the president. And he's like, oh, okay, sure, come on in. And so that's how it all happened, right? And so that was a networking piece. I found a job online, but I ended up finding that role because I networked with somebody back in the day. Does that help? I hope that explains.
Yeah, I think it's really important to know the difference of knocking on doors versus submitting applications online. But I think there are also other ways to network besides just knocking on doors.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but that is not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
What are other ways that you can network?
Yeah. So, and I'll probably hit up Tim on this one. Right now, we're in a virtual environment. I don't want you going to anybody's business, and probably there's nobody there to go, right? And so, Tim can probably talk about how you kind of build that relationship or network on the virtual side.
Sure. So, to piggyback on the original question, getting a job by blindly submitting a resume into whether it's the client portal or whether it's a posting on a career site, it's a low probability calculation. You've got to consider that your resume is going to be among hundreds, if not thousands, depending on the role that the company is trying to fill. You're going to be competing with that number of resumes. And I know that we're going to talk later on about if you choose to go that route, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but if you choose to go that route, we're going to talk about how to make your resume stand out amongst some of the others, but we'll get to that in a moment. But understand that submitting your resume into a company blindly without having a relationship is a low probability calculation. And so the question then becomes, well, how do I get the job that I want? And it is through leveraging the power of your network. And the network and building your network, and we use that word kind of trivially, but it's a very powerful, very strong concept. Your network is a long play proposition, right? You've got to start working it now. There's an old Chinese proverb that goes, or a riddle that goes something like this: when is the best time to plant a tree? Matt, I'll ask you. You started with a joke. When's the best time to plant a tree?
I got this 20 years ago.
20 years ago. You've heard it, right? That's it.
Well done.
The best time to plant a tree, if you want to take advantage of the shade, was a long, long, long time ago. The second best time to plant a tree is right now, right? So we teach networking as a skill at eHire, and we teach networking as a skill amongst recruiters. And I can give an example of how to most effectively manage a network and build a network. Here in Atlanta, we've got a trade association known as the Technology Association of Georgia. And it's one of the largest trade associations of its kind in the country, and it's one of the most effective. And basically what it is, it's a big club, a big user group that's divided into about 25 different technologies. So if you're a web developer, there's a group for you within TAG. If you're a data scientist, there's a group for you within TAG. And what we suggest and what we teach is that if you're a technologist, if you're a web developer in Atlanta, you need to get plugged in into that group, and you need to start serving, because your network is most leverageable, not only amongst people that you know within your network, but it's who you know within your network and how you're working within that network. So if you're starting from ground zero, if you just graduated from school and you've got your degree in data science, then we encourage you to become a part of the data science or the data analytics networking group. And then we encourage you to begin serving. When they have their monthly meetings, you're going to be in there with 250 or 300 other people that are like-minded. They're data analytics people. They're interested in data analytics. They're interested in predictive analytics. And you're going to be listening to speakers, and you're going to be enjoying presentations. But what we encourage people to do is to begin serving within that group. Show up, find the people that are on the board and say, look, I'd like to show up early. I'd like to help you set up chairs. I'd like to help you break down the room, and let them see you work. And then after a period of time, ask what you need to do to become a board member. And that's when the real magic of your network starts to happen, right? When you're serving alongside other board members. Cindy, you mentioned during your introduction to me that I sit on the board of TAG Ed. TAG Ed is the STEM activation arm of TAG, and we work to build Atlanta's next generation of technologists. And we work from the kindergarten age group all the way up to the seniors in high school. Now, I'm working alongside people and solving some pretty meaningful problems, but I'm way above my pay grade. I mean, way above my pay grade. The people that I work with and volunteer with are CEOs and CIOs of Fortune 150 and Fortune 250 companies. I would normally not have any type of access to these people at all. But because of the work they see me doing and the volunteerism that I do within this group, if I need them, I can call on them. And if I were in a job pinch, I would be able to go to my Rolodex. That's an old term, right? Does anybody have a Rolodex anymore? I'd be able to go to my contact list in Gmail and say, I know this guy at NCR. I know this guy at Coca-Cola. I know this guy at Delta, and these guys are going to be willing, and they're going to be able to plug me into people that they may know. So that was a long-winded narrative, but the answer to the question is you need to start working on your network right now. If you're young, if you're out of college, if this is something that's new to you and you're hearing it as a 40 or 45 or a 50-year-old person, you know what? 20 years ago was the time to do it, ideally, but you got to start working on that now. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. Tim, I really like your comment about serving, because I talk to young professionals all the time who are so scared of networking. And honestly, the idea and the word networking is really scary. Mm-hmm. To me, it's just talking to people in your industry.
It is.
But it's getting that face time with people. But it can be really scary if you're in a big group of people and everybody already seems to know each other. How do you go and have those conversations? I really like the idea of you pointing out serving, because you don't have to have conversations as much as you have to show your work ethic. So I was wondering if you could also bring up other ways to start conversations and also how to do networking virtually, because we are in very much a virtual world, especially right now where the majority of us can't really leave our houses. How can we network virtually?
Matt, I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah, I think for me,
question.
you know, I'm going to flip the script just a little bit, Sydney. I'm going to bring you back in.
Go for it.
Because we're involved. You and I met through IAEE, right?
Yep.
I said, hey, I'm interested in just seeing where I can help. And you said, hey, you know, maybe you're kind of smart enough to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll try, but I don't know. And so as you look at people out there, how does this resonate within IAEE and our Rocky Mountain chapter? Because a lot of these people are kind of maybe involved in the events. How would they get involved with IAEE right now?
I think it is just an email to IAEE Rocky Mountain chapter. You could go to a national organization, but I always recommend going to something more local first, because that's where you're going to see a lot more return on your investment in regards to jobs. So reaching out to the local organizations, just saying, hey, I'm interested in coming to your next meeting or getting to know your organization better. And then seeing where it goes from there, showing your initiative and your incentive. And I see this being beneficial from people in college right now to post-collegiate, honestly, to people who are in their 60s, 70s. I don't care how old you are, get involved and just ask, how can I help? There's always something you can do, whether it be an organization that only has 5 to 10 board members and plans semi-regular events, all the way up to an organization that has 25 board members. They're still looking for subcommittee members. You always need hands on the ground.
Right. I think that's so correct. And I think you're right to, you know, jump in and just ask, send an email, right? Send an email is very innocuous. You can kind of type it out. Hey, I'd be interested. If I was going to do a kind of a 3-step process, you can write this down. Everybody grab their pen and paper. The first thing I would do if I was just starting out networking is I would go out and read some information about what I'm interested in. So let's just say, I think Sean is on this call. He teaches at a university. I think it's Metropolitan College.
Metropolitan State University program, which is their hospitality program.
Right. So Sean just put out some stuff yesterday about a book he's writing. So he pushed out 9 pages. Well, if you're interested in hospitality, yeah, I'm giving you a plug, Sean. You would want to read that, and I would probably connect with Sean and go, hey, Sean, I really like reading this, and this is why. This is of interest to me. Who else should I connect with that has this type of information? So that's the first one, is go out there and find information that's very important to what you're interested in, right? I'm interested in learning about hospitality, or I'm interested in learning about private equity firms, right? And so I'm going to learn about those things. And then I'm going to talk to some thought leaders. Hey, you are a thought leader in this. I'm interested in connecting and learning from you, right? And then I would ask Sean, I go to Sean, I go, hey, Sean, you're a thought leader in this. You're building this book. You're a professor. Who else should I be listening to in the marketplace, right? Who else is important? And then he'll probably give me 2 or 3 names, right? Maybe Rebecca, maybe Sydney, maybe Tim. And then I go to all 3 of them and said, hey, I connected with Sean, and he mentioned that you are a thought leader in this space. I'd love to connect with you and learn and grow as I'm going in. And then you can start to connect with people, and you can extrapolate that out. Then you go to those 3. Hey, who are 3 people that you feel that I could? Do you see how, you know, the work of 3, right? Every time you connect with one, you can build 3 more, and just say, I'm interested in learning. Now, if the first thing I did is when I connected with Sean, I say, hey, do you have a job? Do you know anybody looking for a job? I really like a job. I really need a job. He's gonna be like, whoa, you know, hey, maybe I'll help you. But if you start to interact with him and start to say, hey, and then I come back to Sean and go, hey, Sean, thank you. I connected with Sydney. I connected with Tim. And I connected with Rebecca. You know, I really appreciate you doing that. and then that starts to build some credibility, and it'll help you. So first one, go out and find, information that's very important. Second, connect with some of those thought leaders, right? And continue on to do that. And then third, go back to those thought leaders and say, hey, I really appreciate that. By the way, I happen to be in the market. If you hear of something, I'd love to be in that conversation, right? I may not be a great fit, but tell you what I'll do. I may be able to find somebody within my network that would be a great fit, right? And so offering out, saying, hey, I'm not always the best solution, but I'm here to help build a community and be part of this initiative. Tim, is that making sense? Am I saying the right thing?
A couple of big takeaways I got from that, Matt, is that it's not often that your very first, let's look at the network in relationship to your cousins, your first cousin, your second cousin, your third cousin, and your fourth cousin, right? It's not often that within your network that your first cousin is going to have a solution for whatever challenge you're facing, right? But your first cousin may know the second or the third or the fourth person that they may be able to connect you with in order to provide you with that lifeline that you need. So it may not come from your first cousin. It may come from the fourth introduction that your first cousin makes to you. So think of it in those terms. Another thing to give thought to, I've got a couple of things I want to touch on, Matt, is that if you look at Matt and I and Sydney speak, you can see that we're outgoing, we're gregarious, we're animated, and that's because we've got a lifetime of talking to people. We've got a lifetime of being that guy or gal that can be in a room and just walk over and just start talking to someone. Not everybody can do that, and I realize that. However, it is a skill. It's not necessarily something that you're born with and innately, divinely given. There's maybe a little bit of a spark of that, but learning how to talk and to engage with someone is a skill, and skills are attained by repetition. Skills are attained by doing it. And the more you begin to talk to someone and open up to someone, the easier it becomes the next time that you do that. The second thing I'd like to add, Matt and Sydney, is that building your network and nurturing your network is good, effective career management, right? We all have our jobs that we have to do, or we're all looking to have our next jobs that we want. And that's going to take your 40, 45, 50 hours a week. And that's the commitment that you make to your employer to do a great job. But you also have to dedicate time every week, every month, right? Every day, you've got to dedicate time to cultivating your career by making yourself highly liquid in the market. And the way that you do that, number one, is to make sure that you're really, really good at your work, right? Competent people that are very competent at what they do, whether they're salespeople or technologists or whether they're event planners, if you're at the top of the food chain and you're really, 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 really good at what you do, you're going to get that next gig. You're going to get the next role, and you can get it on your terms, or if you're pushed out of one job, you can be assured that you're going to get your next one pretty quickly. So being really good at what you're doing is probably one of the best things that you can do to be liquid. The second best thing that you can do is learn how to cultivate, nurture, and build your network. And Matt, you said something really important. You don't lead in with the 1-2 punch, right? You don't lead in with, hey, looking for work, and I know that you know some people, and how can you help me? Right? You've got to get into when I'm training recruiters about how to be able to have good, meaningful conversations. You've got to be able to get into the kitchen space. You've got to be able to get into intimate conversation space. And that doesn't just happen on the first conversation, right? That happens through the course of hours of getting to know someone. So this is work. It's not a silver bullet. It can be a silver bullet, but you can't fire it right away. You've got to develop these relationships over the course of time. It's a skill. It's something that you've just got to start doing. And there are lots of resources out there to help you understand how to better open up in conversations and how to get information from someone. But that's what I wanted to add to that.
Yep.
Tim, I want to comment on that. You brought up that we are obviously, the three of us, rather extroverted, and I'm sure that there are introverts on this call. I think that this time frame of being separated physically from other people is actually a great opportunity for introverts to do reach out, because you don't have to be in person. You don't even have to pick up the phone. You can send emails, you can send messages on LinkedIn. Heck, you can send messages on Facebook or Instagram if you really wanted to. You can start that conversation from behind your screen and feel and make that first step to building your network from afar. Let's touch on a couple more quick things on networking, and then let's dive
Can I
into some
ask one-
resume work.
Can I say one thing about
Yeah.
that real quick? So let's just say I'm looking for a job right now, and Tim, you jump in, and Sydney, please jump into. Let's say I'm looking for a specific job. I've identified 4 different companies that I want to work with, right? But Tim just said that, and I said that, we shouldn't really apply online, but you should apply online, but you should come in with a strategy, right? And I think that's kind of what Tim talked about. So if I were going to come with a strategy, the first thing I would do is I would research the job, make sure I can do it adequately, right? That I have the skill set. And that's one thing that kind of Tim talked about. Men tend to, there was a study that showed men apply for jobs where they have at least 60% of the skill set, right? Women actually wait until they have about 80% of the skill set, then they'll apply. So message, hey, women, apply earlier, right? Expand your network out just a little bit. Expand your jobs out. I like to say about 70 to 80% is the right formula. At about 50 or 60%, you kind of get passed over because there are other people. So maybe inch it back a little bit, ladies, and maybe men push it up just a little bit, right?
Matt, I would, while you're on that topic, and so I don't forget, I would add to that when we're taking job orders, when we're working on the agency side, when we're working with a hiring manager at XYZ company, and he's articulating to us all of his wish list, the wish list is usually enormous. They're looking for, they're looking for 35 or 40 skills, different type of technology skills. And part of our training is to work with that manager and say, hey, now wait a minute. Let's get to the very essential needs. What does this person really need to function at a high level of this job? Because what you're asking for does not exist. So oftentimes when we put a job online, we've condensed it down to the bare essentials. And if they skip that process, and if it's a hiring manager that's going right to the career sites or LinkedIn, he's going to put every single thing in the world that he's looking for. And Matt, to your point, if you're applying, you should ignore about 50 to 60% of, if you've got 50 to 60% of the tools that they're asking for, apply. That's what you're saying, right?
I look at those first 3 bullet points because those are generally the most important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can fulfill those then, and Tim, you may be able to answer this, and probably Sydney, what would be the next step? So I found the job, I found the company. I know what I would do. I would go look on LinkedIn and see if I'm connected to the hiring manager, right? I'd be like, where's my connection?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then let me see how I can connect into that person. And I would try to connect with them. If I see a lot of the time the jobs, and they do this and they shouldn't, this person reports directly to the director of sales operations. Okay, well, you just told me who this job reports to.
Mm-hmm.
Google search, LinkedIn search, director of sales opportunities. Let me link into them and see if I can create a relationship. Right, wrong, what is it?
Yeah, if you can find that person, what do you say to them?
Oh, this is a good one. Tim, what would you say?
Well, first of all, let me back up and edify what you said. Absolutely. If I see a job on LinkedIn, online, and if I'm going to apply for it, I know we're going to get to resume stuff later, but if I'm going to apply for that job with my resume, and I don't know who that manager is, I'm going to go to LinkedIn and look for the different profiles. I'm going to look to see who I know that works at that company. I don't know if I have different privileges than LinkedIn that some people do, but when I look at a company, I have a little blue hyperlink that says, here are all 257 people that work at XYZ. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to see if I have any first cousins, so to speak, right? I'm going to see if I have any first generation contacts there or second generation contacts there. Then I'm going to send them a message. Hey, Matt, just want to let you know, I saw a job that's open at your company. You and I have known each other 15 years. I want to put in an application, but can you either be my champion or can you let me know who this reports to so that I can work directly with them? I'm going to work the angles that way, right?
Yep.
And then if I do get the opportunity to either send an email directly to the hiring manager, or if I have an opportunity to get on the phone, I want to encourage everyone here, to have your 20-second elevator pitch. Right? To have to be able to effectively articulate why it's important and why it's going to be in your best interest to know me. So Matt, if you were the CEO of one of the best technology staffing firms in the country, right? And you and I just happen to get in the lobby together, and we're walking into the elevator, and I know that I want to work for you, right? And you get off on the 4th floor. I know I've got 2 floors, right? 2 or 3
Yeah.
floors to make my case, right? I'm going to look you square in the eye. Now, again, I know that not everybody can do this, right? But this is the way I would do it. Matt, it's so great to meet you. My name's Tim Wellmaker, and I'm a technology staffing leader. My greatest passion in life is helping to change people's lives. I've been doing a great job of that for over 25 years. I'd like to do it for you. Can we have a cup of coffee? Bam. That's me. That's the way I approach it, right? Have your 20-second value articulation, who you are, why you do what you do, how you do it, and the fact that you would like to connect with this person and further articulate your value articulation to them.
Perfect. That's great. I agree with that. I appreciate that. We're about halfway in. Sydney, do you think it'd be a good time to see if anybody's got any questions or anything like that?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions on networking in particular, feel free to put them forward, and then we'll go into
set out something. I love it. You see what Beth put? Thank you, Beth. You helped us out.
All right, so Beth said, I'm going to read it to everybody. You can look on chat as well, but Beth said, the hospitality management event planning industry is a small world. With so many of us out of work and trying to network, how do we find a spot in the pool of contacts, and how do we strike that balance, knowing there are masses of others doing the same thing, respecting the networking contacts who are likely being hit up by a lot of folks? Yes, that is so pertinent right now.
So I've got one way I would expand out your network just a little bit, right? If you are rarely, or if you really talk within the hospitality and event planning industry, let's move out to corporate event planners or marketing managers or directors of marketing, things that encompass part of what you do. Now, Beth, I don't know exactly what you do, and you and I could probably sit down and have a conversation. And if we're not LinkedIn, please LinkedIn with me and I can help. But I would probably start to expand out that net, right? And there may be things that encompass part of what you do. You know, one thing I know about event planners, they're great at project management. They do a ton of things at the same time, right? You know, you're juggling this, you're throwing this one, you're balancing this cup on your head all at the same time. So project management is great. You can talk about that you understand how to market to people, how to connect with people on, you know, an in-person or live level. There's a lot of things that you can do to kind of start expanding out who you talk to outside that little bubble, right? And so if you're in Denver and you're saying, hey, I know almost everybody, and you know, half of us are laid off. Well, do you know all the directors of marketing or marketing managers or CMOs or, you know, chief marketing officers or anything else that kind of just expands out your network? That's the first place that I would look. Tim?
So, Matt, I think you did a little teaser yesterday about the relationship spreadsheet that we've used. Yes. For the last several years. And that might be a good time to interject something there. And I agree 100%. You need to expand your network. So one of the things that I do outside of my day job is I'm a football coach, right? And I've been coaching in Atlanta for about 20 years. So I've got an extensive network of parents that I've met whose kids I've coached. Now, I don't know a lot of them like I know some of my peers in the staffing business that might be able to help me more in an immediate sense. But I can almost guarantee that of the hundreds of people that I know on the football side of my life, there are people that know people that might be able to help me leverage my next job. So when you talk about expanding your network, I would encourage everyone to think outside of your silo, right? And include everybody in that network. And here might be a good time to talk about the relationship spreadsheet. We encourage all of our recruiters and all of our business developers. This is a tool that could be used to leverage your next job. If you're a business developer or a salesperson, this could be a tool that you can use to expand your business development and acquire more logos. But specifically about your next role, I keep a spreadsheet, and I encourage all of my recruiters and account managers to keep a spreadsheet of everyone we know. Everyone, right? Now, so my mom's on my spreadsheet, right? My uncle's on my spreadsheet, and I have a lot of professional contacts that are on my spreadsheet. And it's a very simple, archaic tool that has their name, and it has 2 columns. One column is named their willingness to help me, and one column is called their ability to help me. And this sounds a little bit brash and antiseptical, but we're talking about how to get a job and how to leverage the network and leverage the people that you know. So I measure them on their willingness and their ability on a scale of 1 to 5. Now, let me give an example of this. My mom, she loves me, right? I love my mom. She's known me all my life, practically, I think, anyway. But my mom would rank at a 5 in her willingness to help me. She'd help me do almost anything, but she ranks a 0 in her ability to help me. She's 82 years old. She's been retired forever, and she doesn't know a whole heck of a lot of people that she would be able to connect me with. So she averages out at a 2.5, a 5 on one scale and a 0 on the other scale. So I'm not going to have coffee with her to talk about my career, right? I'm going to go visit with her, take her some candy and donuts and stuff, but we're going to talk about different things. However, Matt, you're on my relationship spreadsheet. Sydney, you went on my relationship spreadsheet yesterday, okay? So Matt, you'll be happy to know that you rank a 5 in your willingness to help me and a 5 in your ability to help me. So I take everyone, Matt's winning. So I take everyone that ranks a 3 or above, and I start calling them, and I start having coffee with them, and I start taking them out to lunch, right? Or I start having phone calls or video chats with them like this. And it's, hey, how you doing? How's the career going? How's the family going? We have our pleasantries. And I'll say something like, hey, Matt, I just want to let you know, I'm considering making a change. And I know that you know a lot of people that I know, and you're really connected well in the staffing business. I just want to let you know that I'm open for new opportunities. And now that you know that, who in your network you know that you might be able to connect me with? That's the power of working your relationship spreadsheet. So again, everyone you know, and rank them along those dimensions from their willingness to help and their ability to help, and start making phone calls, sending emails, and trying to get some phone time with those folks. And again, it may not be that Matt will be able to help me directly, but Matt may know someone who knows someone, and his reference for me will be a very powerful and a very leverageable tool to get me a meeting. And then at that point, it's up to me.
Absolutely. I love that, Tim. We are running low on time, so let's jump into resumes. In the meantime, background. We have one question.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And so, Markia, if I said it wrong, forgive me, right? So it says, how can we start setting ourselves up for success if we may graduate during the pandemic, right? Are these certain classes of trainings that we should add to set up for success? Right. I would say, interpersonal communication, right? The ability to communicate and leverage and speak and talk is always important. I have to constantly struggle and work at my written communication. I guess my fingers are big, and so I always type the wrong words and stuff like that, and wrong letters. But the ability to communicate and articulate is very key, and I don't know if that'll ever go away. So, I think you can start out simply, right? If I said, hey, I graduated within this, and I'm really trying to learn and grow within this space, I may not be able to get a job, but I guarantee if you continue to talk about it and continue to do it, eventually you'll find somebody, right? And you'll eventually, it's the old adage, when you stop looking for your keys, when you found your keys, right? And when do you kind of stop, asking people about a job is probably when you have a job. Now, does that mean you stop connecting and networking? Probably not. But that means you'll probably continue on. And I think it's important for people to be able to add new skill sets. There's certain certifications you can go out there. There are certain organizations that have great certifications. So right now, Pluralsight, if you're not familiar with Pluralsight, they're one of the largest technology online training companies out there. So all their stuff is free in April. So if you want
to plug right there, Matt, MPI, I know I'm not a member of MPI, but they have a ridiculous amount of free material right now, free education, webinars that are events focused. So take the time to look at MPI.
Yep. MPI. Swoogle has a certification. You can get Coursera. I think it's Coursera.
Yep, Coursera.
I took an artificial intelligence class through Stanford. MIT, I took I started the artificial intelligence class at MIT, found out it was a 600 level. I got about 3 or 4 classes in, and then they started talking about really the data unstructured and how you use calculus to figure this out. And I was like, okay, this is the 600 level class. It's a master's class. I may back off on that. But there are a lot of free resources out there. So let's see, Pluralsight, who else just, Oracle has all their certifications right now are free, so you can try those out. No, you may not be an Oracle person, right? But I would guarantee that there's something, HTML, JavaScript, something that you could learn on Pluralsight that would add to your resume right now. And people are going to be out of work. It's what you do with that time that you could show people, hey, I was out of work, but I wanted to learn more. So I came in and I learned about HTML and JavaScript, and I did this project management class and I got certified in this. There's a lot of free instances out there that allow you to kind of show that in the times that are tough, even when I have a downtime, I'm going to be moving forward. Does that?
And Matt, I think that's completely applicable for any phase in life where you are without a job, not just during this pandemic, but if you have a blip in your job career, like if you're looking at your resume and there's 6 months empty, that you might be asked, well, why did that happen? You can say, well, I was without a job, but here are all the things that I did while I was without a job to make myself more applicable for the next one.
That's correct.
Okay, let's move on to resumes or we're going to run out of time. I'm sorry, Tim.
Okay.
But in the meantime, everyone, if you come up with ideas or questions, maybe we can convince Tim and Matt to do a follow-up webinar on this. So if you think of things that are more specific, we want to do more deep dive into, put them in the chat and maybe we can convince them to do a follow-up down the road. Okay, let's talk resumes. What info needs to be on your resume? Big blanket statement.
That's a great question, right? Because if you don't have the network, if you're not going to be leveraging your network to get the meeting or to hand deliver, so to speak, your resume into the manager, then you've got to make your resume stand out amongst the thousands or maybe even tens of thousands of resumes that may be coming in that are being sorted through. So there's some things that you need to understand about what happens behind the scenes, whether your resume is being reviewed by a human resources generalist, or whether your resume is being reviewed by a talent acquisition specialist, or whether your resume is being reviewed by an agency recruiter. So there's some fundamental things that you need to be board with. And one of those is the concept that less is more. But what you put in there needs to be powerful and very impactful. I shared with Sydney last night a template of a resume, and I don't know how readily that is to be shared with everyone, Sydney, but you have my permission to share it with everyone. And I put a couple of links in that resume that talk about powerful words to use and what words not to use. But one of the real interesting things that's in that resume is how recruiters and how talent acquisition people or how people in general read and look at information. And these are studies that have been done that are very empirical. They're backed by science. They're backed by results. This is not anecdotal. This is not me telling you the way that I look at resumes, but people look at resumes in a very specific way. And it's called an F pattern. I didn't know that existed until a couple months ago, but the F pattern simply means that people start at the top and then they very quickly look for bold stuff and they work their way down the left-hand side of a resume or a document for that matter. So one of the most important things that you can do for your resume is to make it a clean format. And again, I've given an example to Sydney that she's free to share with everyone in terms of where to bold, right? How to use white space to create a less cluttered look, the type of font that you should use, because if your resume appears clunky, if it's overly worded, if you've got very long sentences, if you've gone to a graphic designer to set up tables and boxes and all of that stuff within your resume, I can tell you unilaterally and axiomatically that your resume will get about 3 seconds of a view. And your job in looking for your new job is to get that talent acquisition person to spend more than 7 seconds, because the average resume gets 7.5 seconds before someone determines whether or not they're going to spend another 30 seconds on that resume. So it's absolutely crucial that you don't overdo your resume. It's overcluttered, it's chaotic, it's noisy, and someone's just going to be looking for keywords, and the first job is like, I can't deal with this, on to the next. So clean resume, proper fonting, proper spacing, all of this is demonstrated in the example that I sent to Sydney yesterday.
And now it's attached to our chat, so feel free to take a look at it there, everyone.
Oh, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. There's also at the back side of that document, there's just a condensed summary of great things to do versus really bad things to do on your resume that won't get the attention of someone. So the most important thing, besides the cleanliness and the proper formatting and the fonting, is to make sure that that first job speaks to the job that you're applying for. And that brings up a very important point. Looking for work is full-time work. And you're going to have a resume that Matt and I call in the past, we call that your anchor document, your anchor resume. That's a very general expression of who you are. But you should be ready and able to fine-tune and customize your resume for every single different role that you apply for, right? So there's some work that you have to do. You have to have your anchor document, but then you have to have the ability to customize. You're not going to misrepresent yourself, because you'll be exposed eventually, right? But you want to be able to customize your resume without misrepresenting yourself to each individual job that you apply for. I don't know if that offers any help.
That's great. That's great help. Can I piggyback off that, because I agree with what Tim is saying, and can I use an example maybe that would help out? So
absolutely.
If I'm hiring for a role, my role is going to be different than Tim's role. We're both hiring, let's just say, a marketing manager. The tools that I use at my marketing company may be different than what Tim uses. Now, there's probably going to be a skill set that's going to be very simple, right, across that is going to work for Tim's and work for mine. But on a resume, you don't put everything that you do for everything on your resume. So you may put some information about what you did and what you achieved. You know, I always like to use the challenge. What was the challenge that I was faced? What was the action I took? And what was the result? So people can kind of see some results. And then after that, you're going to probably curtail it to my stuff. So if you've used both technologies, you're not going to say on Tim's, hey, Tim, I used, Matt's technology on that resume, because it's not applicable to Tim's role. But on mine, it's very applicable. So what you're going to do is you may take that statement off mine, and then put it on Tim's for his skill set. And so that's when I talk about customizing it, you're going to put the information that you use. Maybe I had to use both technologies. Maybe I did this. And so you're going to highlight different bullet points on your resume that it's going to allow you to match up to the first 3 or 4 bullet points on theirs. Now, never make anything up, because it always comes out 100%. They'll always, once they see kind of blood in the water, they're like sharks, right? They'll start going down that path and they'll chase it to make sure, right? But if you're able to articulate, yes, this is how I use it, and this is what happened, then they'll just move on, right? It's not a big deal. But it'll be important for you to customize it. And then when you save it as that resume. So if I'm applying to Tim's job and it's an e-hire, I'm going to save this as e-hire. Right? And so when Tim says, hey, can you share me a copy of your resume? I'm not sharing the one I shared with Matt or Sydney. I go back to that e-hire one and I share it. Why? Because it's got pertinent information in that one. Does it take more time? Yes. But is it worth $70, $80, $100,000? Yeah, probably, because that may be what you're getting. Right?
That's right. And again, key to remember is that when you're working for work, you're going to be investing time. You're going to be putting 35, 40, maybe even more hours a week into making sure that you're properly representing yourself to the number of people that you need to represent yourself to. So along those lines, Matt, you mentioned not mixing up resumes. It's very important that you keep a spreadsheet or a chart of where you've sent your resume. because you can really get tripped up if you send your resume into a company and then you also develop a relationship with a recruiter who sends that resume into a company, and then you got a couple of conflicting situations right there. And sometimes managers, as opposed to getting into some sort of conflict with this resume of Matt came to me by this person, then this resume from Matt came to me by another person, they'll just kind of throw their hands up and say, I'm not going to mess with any kind of competitive situation. They'll just move on. So make sure that when you get calls from recruiters and they're going to pitch you on a job, make sure you know where your resume is going before you give them the green light to send your resume, because you may have already put your resume in with that manager. So it's very important to keep a log, a journal, a diary of every time you've sent your resume into a company for a job.
Sounds great. I want to bring up one more thing because we have about 4 minutes left of this webinar. Time has
You're so
flown.
good, Sydney. Thank you.
I know. So one thing we knew we wanted to bring up was how to get experience that is applicable for the jobs you're applying for, because so many jobs want experience, but not everybody will give you that experience. I want to put a little bit of information out there. To Matt's and Tim's point earlier about going out and building a network and talking to people, whether it be on LinkedIn or via email, and the rule of 3 that Matt was bringing up, of introducing yourself to 3 people via the original person you had chatted with. Offer to shadow. Ask to shadow someone for a day or for a week. Yes, you're not going to get paid, but you'll get a chance to try something out, and it will increase the amount of skills that you have. Internships are great, but sometimes they're hard to come by. So think about something that could be a little bit smaller than an internship that maybe is an unpaid experience, volunteering, like Matt was bringing up earlier with IAE or any other events or any industry organization. To Tim's point, put yourself out there for small things. They will snowball.
So to piggyback on that, Sydney, and going back a little bit on the network, what you can do, right, if you're still in school, if you're getting ready to graduate, is that I would encourage everyone to think along the lines of this temporary nature of the situation that we're in. Given that it is temporary, I'm not trivializing it. It's a very serious situation, and the job market will be changed significantly once we get through the wormhole, so to speak. But it is a temporary situation. And that simply means to me that old proven practices are still going to work, right? So from a networking perspective, I want everyone to think about the things that you're passionate about and have a duality to your networking strategy. Find something that you're passionate about, something that you love that may not even be connected to your job, right? Some sort of benevolent or philanthropic type effort that you can be engaged with, but also have one from a professional standpoint that you can get engaged with as well. Find out how you can serve. Find out how you can be a contributor and add value and prove your worth to the people that are in charge of that user group or in charge of that association, so that you become noticed. This is all about, whether it's through your resume or whether it's through your network, this is all about separating yourself from everyone else.
Yep.
You want to look different from everyone else. And the way that you do that is you serve sacrificially in networks that you're associated with. You learn how to write a good, clean resume so that if you're among 100 or so, yours stands out. This is all about looking different than everybody else at the moment to get the attention of the buyer.
Yeah,
I completely agree. We are at 10:59, and so we're going to wrap this up. I just want to say thank you all for joining us for Recruitment and Job Applications, presented by Young Professionals of IAE Rocky Mountain Chapter and sponsored by Aventus AI. Please follow IAE Rocky Mountain Chapter on all of your social media channels to keep up to date on our upcoming events. You can also check out our website, iaee-rmc.com. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Tim, for joining us. This has been wonderful. Send us an email or message us on our social channels with any ideas for future events, because this was amazing and I would love to do it again. Everyone, stay healthy, stay connected, and stay invested in the events industry.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.